my lead.
Oh,
Game
Lord.
Changers Media Network, Game Changers Magazine, Voices of the Village podcast, and I'm back with Dr. Patricia Young Thompson right here on VOTV. Before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about all the great things you were doing with your career in aviation. You working with young adults, breeding them for a career in education, and helping out in your community, partnering with other nonprofit organizations in the community. One
Hmm.
being Dr. H3 Foundation with Dr. Henry Washington. How do you feel about partnerships in the community, and what does the value of partnerships in the community mean to you?
Oh my gosh, we cannot build these young people to where they need to be unless we develop more partnerships.
Okay.
I actually had the same vision as Dr. Washington and having it at aviation research school.
Okay.
And so when I started hearing what he was doing, and we're targeting our young people, I said, why would I try to start something on my own where
Right.
we all can pull our resources and our thinking together and actually develop a strong program for our youth and young adults to take advantage of? One thing, and I have to also bring out to you on a lot of my volunteer efforts and a lot of things that I've done over the years, is actually working with homelessness and women, helping them with welfare to work programs,
Okay.
watching the homeless babies, moms, babies, while they go out and try to find job opportunities,
Okay.
or to actually not only job opportunities, but just any opportunities or things that they needed to go out and do. So there was an organization that I would hold those babies until the moms come back and just feed them and care for them.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so it was during that time is when I really start understanding how much of a need was out here,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
We're all a village,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we all need to be out here working together, being a community like we used to be.
Correct.
And I have found that we have gotten away from it,
Right. Right.
right? And so my platform is, how do we support our churches more,
Okay.
right? How do we work with communities where we need to help build back up again?
Right.
How do we reach to these young people and help them understand all these skills and trades that they can learn so they can be a lot more independent and be a taxpayer or be a landowner or a house owner, have a house ownership?
Okay.
We can do that. And so that's where I am, where we're talking about our purpose in life and how we can develop young people by explaining and helping them understand your journey so that they can understand and kind of figure out how to plant their journeys and,
Right.
and go on that same process or develop their own process so that they can continue on until adulthood and be successful in whatever aspect or whatever degree or whatever careers they want to go in.
Now, let me ask you this. What do you think the disconnect happened when it came to, one generation reaching the youth? Because it's somewhere, somehow, and a lot of times we blame it on the youth. We say, yo, these youth are not getting
No,
it.
no.
These youth are not, doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing this, they're doing that. But at what point do we have checks and balances in place to where we're looking at, okay, well, what did the prior generation do? In order to lay those stepping stones for the youth. What do we start?
Somehow, I can't recall what president or what year, but somehow I feel that my generation and the generation before, we started acquiring things, doing well, graduating, making great money, moving out into certain areas, and somehow we forgot.
Oh, wow.
And now we're saying, oh my goodness, it's not the kids' fault. I don't like it when people say, these youth won't listen. These youth won't do what. No, we forgot them. We forgot about them.
Yeah.
And not only that, that somehow we got caught up with the system, and that's a whole nother conversation. We got to save our kids. We got to save our youth. We got to be out here voting. We got to be out here making sure that we develop a future for them.
Right.
Because as I go around to different places, and I'm like, where are the youth?
And I totally understand. And let's piggyback on that, because we also I heard you mention the church and things starting the church, because I certainly believe the success of a village starts in
Oh,
the house of God.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. It's
And
always been that platform for us.
and when that happens, I'm looking at the generation, because I used to do gospel rap. I used to be highly involved in gospel, hip hop or whatever people want to say. And I saw the stigma of most of those rappers and most people who was involved in that, saying how the church disconnected it and exiled them away. So now we're trying to reach the children of the parents we exiled out.
Oh, yes. You're right.
Okay.
So now we got to reach those parents that we exiled out to get them back engaged so that they can get their children engaged,
All right.
right?
All right.
So that's why I'm here. How do we do it?
Okay.
How do we go back and say, hey, we need you just as much as you need? So, how that generational gap, we need to work together. Everybody, and not saying that I hear people say, well, I'm not been into these youth, they're not that. No, that's not what they're asking. It's just a matter of how can we reach them and help get them back into the fold. And I can't explain everything and give you a process and a map today.
Right.
But that's something that I'm working on, because
Yeah.
it's a problem. When I grew up in church, we had Easter speeches. If you look at most of your singers, if you look at most of your folks that are in leadership, guess where they came from? Develop those skills.
Where they came from?
Church.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, how do we allow them back and with love, right?
Okay.
And show them that the church is that place where you can develop and help you further along in your trajectory of life.
Well, let's look at it like this right here. I think with this generation and the generation of yesterday, well, the generation that's raising the generation today, what happened, and we talked about COVID, we talked about some of the things that happened. I think the church has to embody a sense of economic empowerment.
Yes.
Because I get it. We all know who Jesus is. We all know who God is. I mean, we have been fed spirituality
Yes.
forever. I'm not saying
Yes.
everybody's saved, and I'm not saying everybody, is, hip hop hallelujah. But what I am saying is the majority of our people know who Jesus is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But let's go to the thing. Like, I think what parents and the youth of today are missing, because it's such a struggle, because inflation is in place,
Yes.
because you have so much going on, is how can I economically survive out here?
I was talking to someone about this, and I love history,
Okay.
right? And I had a discussion with someone not too long ago, and I said, I look back at my parents,
Okay.
their grandparents, back off from slavery. What did they do? They collectively put their things together, money together.
Well, yes.
They had farms. They sold off their farms. They did everything possible. They had their own schools. They had their churches where they were building up people. Why is it so hard? We have more opportunities
Right.
now
Right.
than our parents had, and they were survivors.
Correct.
And they were able to raise 10 and 11 like my family. And I think back, how in the world did they do that? And we never wanted for anything.
We definitely never wanted for anything, but I think we got caught up in the and I'm gonna go back before I think we got caught up. Let's look at the Hispanic community.
Okay.
When the Hispanic community moves into a community, they'll move 10 people, 20 people in one house, and then as they build their income and wealth, they'll split the house in half and buy the house next door.
Well, guess what? Black people used to do that too. If you start going down to Auburn and start listening to some of your older folks that have survived like the 60s and what they did, it would amaze you. We did that.
But what happened to it?
Well, that's where I'm telling you. At some point, we started advancing, moving out into these great and wonderful areas where we thought
were great and wonderful areas.
We thought that were great and wonderful areas,
Right.
and we started moving in and forgot.
Right.
The
Because
rest
I
of
was
the
just
generation.
talking to one of my colleagues about, the history of Detroit.
Yes.
So in the history of Detroit was a prominent African American city where you had many African Americans going to Detroit, working for I believe it was General Motors,
Yes.
thriving jobs,
Same
and
with Dayton, Ohio.
Same with Dayton, Ohio. And somehow you go back to that city and it's
And
like
it's
no African American. It's deserted. It's deserted.
Right. I was okay.
Go ahead. Now I see that I almost see that happening in Atlanta,
Yes.
where they moved a lot of African Americans here, and now those African Americans are moving to the suburbs out, and the gentrification of Atlanta is happening where they're building it up again and have taken it out, and now everyone is paying for these high price mortgages. I mean, so what if we're the guinea pigs now? I mean, what how do we fix that?
I don't know. We still gonna have to make sure that we stay networked with one another collectively.
Okay.
Even though there has been a breakdown in our structure, it's a systemic issue, right?
Right.
And if you look back when they were red flagging, redistricting and everything. So we got caught up in that, building bridges in the middle of Black communities, right?
Right.
So it starts separate Chicago, all the crime, all the things that are happening. They start trying to build in between some of these
Right.
low income, where it start breaking down that structure,
Right.
right? So how do I remember somebody told me I read where there used to be like a book that Black people use. Okay, go to here, go to there, go to there. They used to have a path charted. So if you go to a grocery store, go to XYZ grocery store, right?
Okay.
So since we have broken down and we still want to have that collectiveness with one another, we're going to have to make sure we stay in contact and keep supporting one another regardless of where you live in. We have to support each other so we can survive out here.
All right.
And people are starting to move in one house together because of the inflation and
Right.
the other things that are happening right now. So it's taking us back, and that's why voting is really important too.
Man.
Right?
Right.
Because we don't want to go back any further. It seems like right when we start progressing, then all of a sudden we're taking steps back.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
And that's where we kind of are. We're kind of taking steps back.
Well,
And
that's
now
kind of a biblical thing too.
it is.
Yeah, hold that thought. We're gonna have to go to another commercial break. I'm still here with Dr. Patricia Young Thompson, Game Changers Media Network, Game Changers Magazine, Voices of the Village podcast. You guys stay tuned. Ease up.